Hello there, my name's David Gordon and you're very welcome to this episode of Travelbites, which takes us on Route 66 in the United States. Of course, it's known as the Mother Road. You can also travel by rail if you so wish. I did so by travelling from Chicago to Los Angeles on the Southwest Chief, which was an incredible journey of 49 hours over 2 days through the entire country of the United States. You can also drive it, of course. I've been lucky enough to drive parts of Missouri and Illinois, and I look forward in the future to driving more of it as well. But I've had the chance to visit places like Albuquerque, Winslow. I've had the chance to see Kansas City, Missouri, and of course Chicago and LA as well. But a man who knows Route 66 inside out is a man called Jim Hinckley, and I joined him recently on a Zoom call to his home in Kingman, Arizona. So welcome to Travelbites. Now you'll see from the screen behind me, or in fact the wall behind me, I'm a big fan of Route 66, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by one of the authors and indeed one of the main people who talk about Route 66, and that is Jim Hinckley. Jim, you're very welcome to the program today.
Thank you. Good morning or afternoon.
It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. We're here, at least it's daylight. That's the main thing. Now, I came across you because I am a fervent reader of books, particularly about Route 66 and Americana and road trips. In fact, I've actually got, if you can see, I've got your encyclopedia here, yeah, and I've got your the Travel Route 66 book as well. So they're really well researched, I have to say. But what does interest me is, how did you start your interest in Route 66 and road trips?
Are you familiar with the American television program Twilight Zone? It was on
Yes.
Back in the 60s. You can cue that music at any point for this story, but for some reason, pretty much everything in my life since 1959 has been tied to Route 66. And I really am that old, by the way. We made our first trip west from Virginia in 1959, traveled a lot of Route 66. I was a bit young to remember that. 1966, my dad was a World War II veteran and Coast Guard on the Great Lakes. He'd had enough of the water, and I can't make this stuff up. He folded a map of the United States so there was no water or coast, and he threw a dart, and it was Yucca, Arizona. And so we packed up from Michigan and we followed Route 66 west to Arizona. At the time when we moved out here, I really thought this was the place they warned me about in Sunday school. But the section of Route 66 we lived on was the old 1952 alignment through Oatman, and there was no traffic at that time. So I literally learned to ride a bicycle, and then I learned to drive a truck and drive cars on Route 66. And when I started driving trucks for a living, the interstate highway was coming in, but there was still sections of Route 66. And I was running from Kingman to Oklahoma City, which was Route 66. When my wife and I were courting 37 years ago, I'd come in off the ranch with, I had a 1946 GMC, and at 35 miles an hour, they'd prefer I wasn't on the interstate, so I drove Route 66.
There's a fascination about Route 66, and I'm as big a culprit of that as anybody, but is it true that it's the most famous road that doesn't actually exist?
You know, I would have to say so, because the road, it ceased to exist in 1985 officially, but it's more popular than any time in its history. And you mentioned, we were talking earlier about the Czech Festival. I was very privileged to attend the European Route 66 Festival in Zlin, Czechia in 2018. There were more than 20,000 people from 10 countries, including Brazil, celebrating America and Route 66 in the Czech Republic. It was just absolutely astounding.
It is such a strange thing, but even within America, there's a real interest in Route 66. And I remember when I was traveling, I went by train. I sort of cheated slightly, and went in from Chicago down to Los Angeles, all the way down, just about following Route 66. But when I met friends in Santa Barbara, they actually told me I'd seen more of America than they ever had, and they'd love to do Route 66 and see that. So there's a real interest in that route. But why do you think it's there?
It's interesting. It's not our most scenic or our most historic highway. but it has always had from its inception the best press and publicity. In 1927, Cyrus Avery and some businessmen put together kind of a chamber of commerce, the U.S. Highway 66 Association, and they began marketing Route 66 as the main street of America. And then we had the Bunyan Derby, a transcontinental foot race in 1928. That was kind of a David and Goliath story, and that got international attention for Route 66. Then we had the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles, and it was promoted, Route 66, as the highway to Los Angeles in the Olympics. Then, of course, we had the Grapes of Wrath, the book and the movie in 39 and 40, and the song, Get Your Kicks on Route 66, which is the most recorded song in history. Everybody has done this, from Pat Boone to the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley. I even got to listen in Poland to a Polish polka band playing Route 66. And then we had the TV show in 1960, Route 66. But what's intriguing to me is the international fascination for the road. And one example of this, what it means, I was privileged to listen to Zdeněk Jurisic of the Czech Republic speak in Los Angeles. And he talked about growing up in a communist country, Radio Free America, bootleg copies of Easy Rider, things of this nature. And he said for his generation behind the Iron Curtain, Route 66 came to symbolize the freedom that the Statue of Liberty had represented for a previous generation. And I just was astounded.
There's also a great pride in those businesses that work along Route 66. I mean, most recently on my most recent trip, I was in sort of southern Illinois, so I was visiting places like Wheezy's and Hamel. I was at Rich Henry's Rabbit Ranch, and I remember talking to Rich, and there's just this pride of being able to be on the route and to meet people from all over the world. You know, I know Rich was fascinated the fact that all these people from all over the world come to see him and come to see Route 66.
Yeah, there's a real pride in being a steward of these things, of being a part of history, of representing America, and preserving the quintessential American experience, the Great American Road Trip. And you see it in like Connie Eccles at the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. They have, her and her sister lovingly restored this 1930s motel. And the passion that they have for it, it's infectious.
And away from Route 66, which is going slightly off our route slightly, if you pardon the pun, there's a real interest in America about sort of roadside attractions. And that's something that's always fascinated me as well. I don't know if you've ever been down to Florida. There's things like the Florida Citrus Tower in Claremont, outside Orlando. And it just sits there, surrounded by shopping malls and houses where it used to be surrounded by citrus groves. But the story of it is that, 60 years ago, that was a place to go. Before the mouse arrived in Orlando, everybody went to the Citrus Tower to see it. So there's also a real interest in keeping that sort of Americana alive, isn't there?
Yeah, you'll find it on highways like US 6, all the highways have these quirky roadside attractions that people are trying to preserve, the neon signs, the mom and pop businesses. Route 66 is a little easier because we have such a focus in international tourism on this. But yeah, roadside attractions are a big part of the American experience. And the Great American Road Trip really dates back to, really 1910 and forward. And quirky attractions have always been a part of that. The world's largest ball of string, and these just oddball things. And Route 66, there's a great place in Missouri. Louis Keene has taken over. It's Uranus, Missouri. And it started out as a topless bar and a truck stop. And Louis has converted this into the quintessential roadside attraction from the 1950s. You can't make any kind of juvenile humor you can imagine, but first thing he opened was a fudge factory, the Uranus Fudge Factory. And then he bought the county newspaper and relocated it to Uranus and renamed it the Uranus Examiner. And it's bad, but it's a circus sideshow museum. He has a double-decker bus from London converted into a restaurant. Just this quirky roadside attraction. And yeah, that's a big part of the draw for sure.
Where do you want to visit on Route 66? Have you done every place available?
No. When people ask me how long it takes to travel Route 66 and see the attractions, my answer is I don't know. I've only been doing it since 1959. Places open, places close, new generations, new people. It changes by the minute. And the key, what really makes Route 66, and you touched on this with Rich Henry, what really makes Route 66 special is the people. It's the travelers you meet. It's the people who own the businesses. It's the old timers like Angel Delgadillo in Seligman, Barber and his family's been there since 1919. That's what makes Route 66 special. And it has its own fan club. I was privileged to speak in Utrecht, Netherlands at a holiday tourism fair several years ago. And the Dutch Route 66 Association hosted a reception for me in Amsterdam at De Praal. I was so surprised. People I had met on the road came from Germany and from Belgium, and we had an entire evening talking about apple pie at the Midpoint Cafe and all these different things. And it was like a family reunion. And here I was sitting in Amsterdam. It was just astounding.
Now, people can follow you on your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. What can people expect if they like your page on Facebook?
Well, it's under Jim Hinckley's America, and that kind of sums it up. I do a weekly live stream program. I like to talk about travel. I like to talk about vintage guidebooks, automotive history. This morning, Coffee with Jim program, I picked up showing off some of the new guidebooks that's been added to my collection. This one's from 1934, Legends of the Lure of the Southwest. And to get myself in trouble, you can find things like this Handbook for the Woman Driver that I picked up from 1955. But I share travel tips, stories, fascinating tidbits. I would just like to share the adventure. I'd like to inspire road trips.
As you say, the man has been telling people where to go since 1990.
Yes.
Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, albeit online today. But thank you for your books that you've been writing, and I've been picking up here in Ireland. And thanks for all the information you send on the internet as well.
No problem. If I can help with anything, holler. And if you find yourself out this way, give a holler. I'd sure love to meet you. And
I will do that next time in that direction.
I got one more to share with you real quick that might add to your collection. This is my new book, Murder in Mayhem, on the Main Street of America, Tales from Bloody 66. It's kind of a walk on the dark side.
Very good, of course. I was going to say that's 2 or 3 of 19 or 20 books I think you've written. So there's a lot. I've
written 19 books, yes.
That's a lot of reading to do.
I'm working on becoming a writer when I grow up.
Yeah. Thanks very much for your time today.
You bet, Dave.
What a great motto to have, the man who has been telling people where to go since 1990. I think that's brilliant. Thanks to Jim Hinckley for taking our call here on Travelbites. If you want to find out more about where I've been and where I want to go, you can find it out at davidgordonstravelbites.co.uk. Thanks for watching and see you next time.